The Voter Rep Project has used a range of tools to accomplish that effort. They are both traditional and those that are considered to be contemporary. Registration, education, and participation, we believe all three have to be in place in order to accomplish the stated goals and objectives. And so by sustaining a high level of program integrity and the like, credibility and respect has been sustained. Let me just simply reference some of the efforts in which we have engaged over the past decade. In addition to the voter registration, the polling, the direct voter contact in the field, both phone banks and neighborhood canvassing, direct mail, that is persuasion, and GOTV, media, both traditional and social. This is a program that's full on to make sure that we educate the voters and then mobilize them. This is fundamentally important. The general elements that we've talked about were augmented by events over the past decade to basically do the business that needs to be done. In 2012, for example, the general election, teletown halls, and our branded entity called Dems in Faith, as well as radio ads, made a big difference in turnout models. So to the committee, as the founder of Voter Rep, we are pleased that we have been able to do what we have done in LA County and in some instances statewide, such as the case currently being contemplated, because we know that big things are happening in 2016 and we need to be in place ready to do our work. And while difficult to make precise predictions, we know that we have had an impact and we will continue to do that, ever so mindful of our history. We don't come to this without regard for our history. Voter Rep was in sponsorship league with the chairman of the Joint Committee just this past week in Sacramento, and with the California Association of County Registrar Recorders to screen Selma. And we did that as a point of saying this is a journey that we should never, ever forget. The 50th anniversary, Senator Hertzberg, of the Voting Rights Act defined the way in which we do business in the nation. And let me just simply say this is not relegated to or confined to southern states. The state of California had bilingual ballots and empowered a whole range of ethnicities specifically pursuant to the Voting Rights Act. Those men and women who walked across that Edmund Pettus Bridge had an impact on democracy of those who had desires to vote but couldn't because of their monolingual status. They were freed up. Their ability to vote was made possible by that very fact. And so we should realize that the parameters of democracy have been expanded because of that. So here we are 50 years later celebrating it. So let me just simply say we must not ever forget that. We must update the Voting Rights Act. The Supreme Court decision in Shelby constitutes what I want to say is an existential threat to democracy. And I'm proud that the County of Los Angeles is supporting H.R. 885, introduced last week. It's important that we do so for obvious reasons. And may I conclude by encouraging your respective committees to introduce a joint resolution that firmly places the California State Legislature on record in support of amending Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act to establish a new coverage formula for jurisdictions with histories of voter discrimination. It seems to me if we want to elevate and authenticate voting, make it relevant, Professor Sonnenschein, we've got to make it right. Justice defines the franchise, and I'm here to just simply say that the African American voter registration education project stands in that tradition, not narrowly, not parochially, expansively. We reach young people, and this is a matter of investment. And it's not limited to the African Americans alone. We focus on urban voters generally because we know that there's much work to be done in a collaborative way. So I wish to thank you for this opportunity to share these thoughts with you and look forward to the continuing dialogue.
Mr. Supervisor, very quickly, the political data information that was shared by Mr. Mitchell from Political Data Incorporated says that in LA County, in the 2014 general, there were 687,963 eligible African American voters, and the turnout in the general election was 178,867 voters. Some 400,000 plus of voters missing from the polls. Any ideas about what can immediately impact that with the African American turnout in LA County? Because that's a significant drop off from those who are eligible to those who actually voted.
Mr. Chairman, let me permit me to quote Dr. King, who said, "It's not a question only of having the right to vote, but to have a reason to vote." And it seems to me the relevancy of the ballot is hardly insignificant in terms of what causes people to turn out. Voter fatigue is a factor, but the issue is what is the inspiration that is afforded voters. It is not enough to say it is one's responsibility. There really does have to be more in play here. The other thing that I want to suggest is that we have to work very hard to make sure that the data is correct and that the voting rolls are clean, that they accurately reflect the realities. One of the ways that the Voter Rep Project has done that is to make sure that people are registered. There is high degrees of some would call it dynamism, but otherwise known as transiency in the marketplace, in the electoral sectors. Therefore, you have to make sure that people are registered to vote because in many instances they become ineligible owing to the fact that they've moved and other reasons and they do not re-register. That is one of the real key factors that keep the rolls accurate, vibrant, and relevant to the task at hand. This is the way in which we believe we are making a contribution, and we have to regularly study the gap between eligibility and turnout. And the intermediary factor is registration itself. And eligibility is one thing, but if people are not registered, if they're registered and they're not educated, if they're educated and don't vote, not enough has then been accomplished. And so we try to take a comprehensive view of this, and that's not easy work, that's simple work, but I want to assert no single portion of the electorate should be written off. There is a tendency in some instances to do that. Now, why? Well, sometimes you can't track African American voters because you don't know if someone lives on in the Fairfax Pico community, if in fact it's an Anglo person or an African American person by the name of Mitchell or Smith. And so I authored legislation when I was in the legislature precisely to try to give the option to designate ethnicity so that we can more accurately know. Otherwise, it's reduced to a Spanish surname, an Asian surname, or you can identify persons who are of Jewish ethnicity in some instances with a fair degree of accuracy, but not always. So you black people can disappear unless we have a more accurate way of identifying who they are. The voting registration cards give the option now pursuant to that legislation, and we have to do more of that to make sure that no one is excluded or disregarded or seen as less relevant than they ought to be. I thank you for your question.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you so much.